Hi everyone, we're going to get started. Thank you so much for joining AutoLeadStar's webinar, How to Keep a High Lead to Appointment Ratio. Today's webinar will be presented by our Content Marketing Manager, Devora Wolf. So without further ado, Devora, you can get started. We're going to take all questions at the end, so feel free to submit them throughout the webinar, but we'll definitely take them at the end.
Okay, welcome everyone. We're so glad you could join us for this webinar. I'm Devora, and today we're going to talk about how to keep a high lead to appointment ratio. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is first impressions. First impressions, you know, are really important when somebody comes into your dealership. What they think about what they see, who approaches them, are they able to find what they're looking for. The stakes are high. They're making a decision every second that passes whether they're going to move forward with your dealership. The stakes might not be marriage high, but they are pretty high. And where they're also high is on your dealership website. It's very important that people have the same kind of quality experience on your website as they do in your physical dealership. And here's why. A quarter of people looking for your dealership will make their first contact with you online. That means they're not coming in to meet you in person, they're not calling you on the phone. The first time they encounter you is with your website. Now, this number, this 24%, was found in a study done in 2015. I wouldn't be surprised if the numbers are even higher now. I would expect them to only grow as time goes on, because of the huge number of people who research their purchases online before coming into a dealership. That said, there's a lot of talk about shopping online and how people try to do most of their shopping online. It's true that even for car purchases, people can eliminate a trip to the dealership if they want to, but the fact is that 88% of people don't want to. 88% of people still want to come in for a test drive, and they consider that really important. And I think we can understand that. Buying a car is not the same thing as buying a phone. It's not the same as buying a pair of shoes. People want to come, they want to try it out, they want to see how it feels and if it feels right for them. That means that we want to make sure that when they come in for that test drive, they're coming to your dealership. And here's why. These days, with all the shopping that goes on online, 40% of people visit only one dealership. More than 2/3 visit 2 dealerships or fewer, 1 or 2, and 1/3 of people test drive only one car. What that means is that so much of the research has already been done when somebody comes into your front door. They don't really need to do a full analysis of what they're looking for. They don't need a lot of guidance in a lot of cases. So what we need is for their online experience to be so positive that it brings them into your dealership, because your dealership could be the only one that they visit. Okay, so the challenge that we're going to talk about today is making appointments and keeping appointments with convenience and efficiency. Okay, we want to help people move from doing this extensive online research on car shopping to actually getting up off of their couch, coming into your dealership, okay? And that process needs to be smooth, needs to be easy, needs to not be frustrating, needs to be part of a whole experience that's positive, okay, to help people sort of make that transition to come in to your dealership. It can be challenging sometimes to make that switch from looking on their computer or their phone to coming in. And it can be challenging in a few ways. We'll look at it from the perspective of the customer, and then we'll look at it from the perspective of the dealership. First, from the perspective of the customer, here are some challenges that sometimes happen. Let's say somebody converts on your site on a particular model, let's say, and in response to that conversion, they get an automated email. An automated email is not all bad, but sometimes it doesn't answer the questions that people have. And when somebody gets that, they find it impersonal and they don't necessarily feel motivated to move forward in the process. Similarly, if converting on your site leads to a phone call that is missed, and then they call back and can't get in touch, and then a game of phone tag begins, each time that happens, it diminishes the customer's motivation to move forward and come in. Each time they get a little more frustrated and a little less likely to move forward. Another thing that sometimes happens is that when a BDC or sales representative reaches the customer, sometimes they ask them questions that they've already answered on their lead form. And for the customer, that's a little redundant, that's a little repetitive, and it doesn't necessarily, again, make them want to move forward. It raises their frustration level instead of increasing their convenience. And we'll talk more later about how to mitigate this problem, how to have better phone conversations when they are necessary. And the final problem that customers typically find is that scheduling can be rushed. When they're sitting with a calendar, when you're sitting with a calendar, it can be hard to find a time in a way that is sort of quick and efficient for people. And especially if you catch someone when they're in the middle of something, they might not really think about whether the time works for them, they might not write it down, and then they might not be on time or actually show up for that appointment. Another issue, well, now we're going to turn to the perspective of the dealership, which I'm sure all of you can relate to. For dealerships, it can be hard to make appointments and get people to come in. And some of those issues are as follows. One is that if you are getting a lot of leads in your CRM, which is a great problem to have, right? Too many leads, too much volume to keep up with. Sometimes when that happens, the temptation to use automation is strong. And as we said, automation doesn't always help people, doesn't always motivate people to move forward. So even though that can be helpful on your end, it can sometimes not actually help the process as much as you'd like it to. When it comes to the perspective of your team, phone tag can be a huge diminisher of motivation. Having to call back 1, 2, 3, 4 times. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, and for a lot of people, a lot of sales representatives and BDCs, that is just so frustrating and makes it so difficult. Especially because after all of that effort, a lot of times people don't show up for their appointments. So that makes it hard to sort of continue that process day in and day out. So what we want to present to you today is that the easier it is to make appointments, the more people will make them, the more people are satisfied with your pre-appointment service, the more likely they are to show up. And when we say that, we're talking about a whole online shopping experience that makes it easy for somebody to move from research to actually coming in with ease, with convenience, without frustration, as part of an experience that's really great for them, it's really easy for them, and that helps them along with their buying process. Okay, so the first solution we want to talk about today is sophisticated automation. I know we spoke earlier about how automation can actually slow things down for you, but automation, when done right, can actually be a huge help. And when we say sophisticated automation, we mean that the system itself is smart and is sophisticated, and that you are using it in a way that really works for your dealership. So there are a lot of automation tools out there. There are a lot of tools that help people make appointments. And the one that we want to emphasize today sets itself apart by being fully automated, fully integrated with your lead capture program. And that's our program at AutoLeadStar called Test Drive. To take people at the moment where they are converting on your website and get them to make an appointment at that moment where they're really interested and sort of at the exact point where they're ready to move forward. So let's take a look at how this works. So here you'll see an example of an offer that might appear on the website. So let's say I'm a shopper and I see this offer and I'm really interested in it. I'm interested in this $3,000 purchase allowance. Okay, so I start entering my information, and you'll see it's going to start entering my name here, my email address. Okay, and then my phone number. Once I enter that information, I'm going to click Get Offer, and this is what pops up as Test Drive. Okay, instead of the window closing at this point, they'll see a second step where users can select a date and a time, okay, and schedule a test drive right on the spot. If they don't want to, they can always click Close and and move on if that's what they choose. But this is so easy and so intuitive and straightforward that a lot of people will actually want to take this next step to schedule the appointment on the spot. Okay, so it's selecting the day and the time, okay? And then a screen pops up saying that we'll be in touch to confirm. Okay, so test drive is a great feature because it happens so immediately after the person converts, catches them at a moment where they do not have to sort of draw on any additional energy to find you to make that appointment. It just happens seamlessly. For the customer, that is a huge benefit. For the dealership, it's also a huge benefit. It increases efficiency. It means that you don't have to play that game of phone tag. You don't have to try to catch them over and over again to make that appointment. When you do make a follow-up phone call, that phone call can have higher value. It's an opportunity to ask the customer any questions that they have, to provide them with any information that they've asked for. What it also does is it increases customer accountability. And what that means is that when a person can sit there on their own time with their calendar open in front of them and make an appointment that works for them, they're more likely to follow through on it. They don't feel the pressure of sitting there on the phone flipping through their calendar. They set the time. They're going to be the ones who come in for the appointment. So let's talk for a minute about the follow-up that's necessary after somebody converts and fills out the test drive form. It's so easy because instead of chasing someone to make that initial appointment, all you have to do is follow up and ask if and confirm with them, confirm the time with them, and make sure that it still works. This is so great, especially if you catch somebody when they're busy and they don't really have to interrupt what they're doing to take out their calendar. So if you catch somebody and they're juggling groceries or children or they're making dinner or they're about to go into a meeting, they don't have to stop that. They can just answer the question right away and everybody gets to move on with their day. Okay, so we've presented test drive as the best solution for somebody who's in that moment ready to convert and ready to move forward and come in to actually try out a car. Taking a step back, there are going to be some customers on your website who are not quite ready to convert and come in immediately. They might convert on a different offer. They might not be ready to come in for a test drive. So we're going to take a step back and talk about ways to reach those customers so that you stay with them throughout their buying process, and when they are ready to make an appointment, they will make that appointment with you. Because as we said, customers are going to so few dealerships these days that it's important to stay with them and nurture those leads. So one way to do that is to make sure that you're looking in your CRM and coming up with targeted marketing, which is to say, look at the groups of people coming in and offer them content that's valuable to them. So just as an example of that, one way to do this is to create personas. Okay, to look at all the people browsing your site, converting on offers, and seeing which of these people are interested in leasing. You might know that from their behavior. They were looking at different types of leasing offers. You might be able to see that a customer is looking at cars and vehicles that indicate that they are price sensitive. You might see that somebody has returned to your site a number of times and is interested in a particular model. Group people by their interests and offer them content on a regular basis that will interest them and that will establish your dealership as a resource so that moving forward, people turn to you again and again, and you will eventually get them to make that appointment and come into your dealership. The third thing we want to talk about today, the third solution, is to provide quick and high-quality lead response. And this goes for any kinds of follow-up that you have. Anyone who converts, whether you're communicating with them by email, by phone, even by text. Some people now have text capability. And however you're doing it, the best way to do that is to first of all make sure to respond. Okay, sometimes people don't get responses at all, and that's the most important thing. If you look at one of the statistics here, only half of people get any sort of response to their inquiry within half an hour. Some people don't get anything at all within 24 hours. So the most important thing to do is make sure that you are following up. And along those lines, following up quickly is probably, after responding at all, responding quickly is the most important thing to do. Shoppers who get replies within 10 minutes are 3 times more likely to visit a showroom than those who get slower responses. Right, so that's a really short window, but a huge payoff with a 3 times more likely to show up. Similarly, if you call within 5 minutes of conversion, you are 100 times more likely to reach them. So one way to sort of cut down on all that back and forth is to try to take advantage of the moment when a customer converts and try to call them as quickly as possible. If you don't reach them, it's important to try again. If you don't reach them the first, second, third time, try the 4th, 5th, and 6th, because even though that takes time and that takes energy, not doing that means that they probably won't visit you at all, and that's definitely not what we want. The next thing we want to emphasize is that it's really important to read your lead. When a lead comes into your CRM, even though we just said call them immediately, take the extra few seconds just to read what they're interested in, what they've been looking at, how many times they've visited your site. And then when you make that call and you speak to them, that conversation is going to be that much better for having spent that time. And we spoke earlier about redundant conversations being frustrating for customers. This sort of eliminates that problem, because when you call and you say, hey, I see that you're interested in this particular car, how can I help, right? Then that person feels like they've already started the conversation and that their process is already sort of being integrated into your dealership. Another thing to do when you make that call and when you contact that lead is to try to offer a value that online shopping can't provide, something that the customer can't get just from using your website. So this could be for somebody who isn't using Test Drive or something like it to actually set up that appointment. It can be starting some of the more complicated paperwork that people hate to sit and do in your dealership. And you can be really clear with your customers on the phone by telling them, I'd like to start you with this paperwork now. It's going to save you time later, and I can help you out with that on the way. So that's another thing that you can really provide for them on a phone call. And the final thing that we'd like to emphasize, which is sort of an obvious point, but that's sort of worth repeating, which is to answer people's questions. People who have questions really want them answered, and if you do that clearly and in a straightforward manner, again, it's about establishing yourself as the expert that people can turn to with any issues that they have. Okay, so sort of to back up what we've spoken about, what we're trying to do is create a positive experience, start to finish, an experience of starting the car shopping process online that is easy, that is convenient, that is seamless. The Test Drive feature is an elegant solution that catches people when they're really in the moment of converting, really in the moment of moving forward, and it's part of a whole process to get people involved with your dealership, continuing with them from start to finish. And we'd really like to emphasize that here at Auto Lead Star, it's not just the test drive that we focus on, but we focus on the whole process of capturing leads at every stage, early leads, later stage leads, and creating a positive experience, positive engagement for all of them. So we'd like to offer this solution to all of you today for a free trial for the next month. So please be in touch. Please be in touch if you'd like to get started. You can email sales@autoleadstar.com, or you can call the number on the screen, and we'd love to move forward with you. So now we'll take questions.
Great. We have a question that came in asking, why should I use Test Drive instead of embedding a form on my website strictly for setting appointments?
Okay, this is a great question because there are a lot of appointment setting tools. And what's different about this is that when somebody's in that moment, It's so easy for them to use Test Drive. They don't have to even take the minute that it would take to find the appointment tool on your website. It's right there. It just pops up. They don't have to do anything. So it's a seamless solution that's sort of totally automated.
Great. Next question. When a lead converts on a tool like Test Drive, does that information get sent through to my CRM?
Yes, that information goes straight to your CRM so that with all the information that you see about that lead, you'll also see that this person has requested an appointment for a test drive and that they would like to have that confirmed. If you like, you can also have the email notification sent to you. Some people prefer that. Some people prefer to have it go directly to the CRM only and not get the email in addition.
Great. And last question for you, Devor. Some of our webinar attendees are asking, how much time does it take to implement?
So to implement the Auto Lead Star process takes about a week to get started. And once you get started, Test Drive is included right with everything else.
Great. Thank you so much for joining our webinar. We look forward to getting your emails, questions, follow-up. We're here for you. And don't forget about our exclusive free trial offer for webinar participants only. 1 month free trial. We look forward to hearing from you.